Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph, along with my partners in crime, Tim Watts and John King. Boys, how are we doing tonight?
Hey, Joey.
Hey, buddy.
Evening, guys.
Well, good to have you, John. And you know, guys, we're very blessed and honored to have Michael Badnarik, the 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate, his website, constitutionpreservation.org, and accomplished author, too, of the books It's Good to Be King and his latest book, Secret to Sovereignty, or How to Survive the Second American Revolution. Michael, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here, gentlemen.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you here as well. And, well, I mean, you see what's going on in the country today with the I hate to say that the country's polarized. I mean, it's polarized 17 different ways, but the mainstream media seems to be really pushing, the gun control agenda. And one of the reasons why I have you here tonight is I'd love to hear you weigh in on that. And also, folks, tonight we're going to be breaking a story. Tim Watts here has done a fabulous job of doing some research into the numbers and the statistics that the mainstream media is using to push this gun control agenda. And you'll be floored to hear what Tim's found tonight. So we'll be talking about that as well and having Michael weigh in on that. But so, Michael, what do you think about this latest gun grab?
Well, I think that it's awful and terrible, and it's leading us in the direction of an American Holocaust. I know that most people don't believe that, are unaware of it, but one of the best pro-gun websites and organizations in the United States is Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, JPFO, and they have produced a fantastic documentary called Innocence Betrayed.
Yes.
And it is incredibly disturbing. I do not recommend that you watch the video shortly before you go to bed. However, it documents all of the hostility since 1900 to 2000, all of the countries around the world that have, A, eliminated guns from the people, and then, B, eliminated the people. The millions and millions of people that have been killed, massacred by their own government. It is astounding. I mean, if I just took you to the theater to see this film, you'd swear that this was a hoax, that it couldn't possibly be true. But those who fail to study history are doomed to repeat it. And history is overrun with the extermination of huge numbers of people. And, the American people, I think, are a little bit different. I think that I'm correct when I say that there are more guns in the United States than people.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. You're absolutely right. And, folks, if you want to view Innocence Betrayed, you can do so by going right to the Orion Talk Radio front page. That's oriontalkradio.com. Tim Watts has conveniently put it right on the front page for you. But like Michael said, make sure you take your make sure you brace yourself, because history really paints a different picture than these gun grabbers are painting. Isn't that right, Michael?
Well, it is. And, we live with such bounty in the United States. We were, in fact, one of the greatest countries in the world for a long time. That most people are just, they're oblivious of some of the things that are going on. When I think the movie was Saving Private Ryan came out, the first 20 minutes of the movie were a depiction or reenactment of the landing of our forces on the beaches at Normandy.
Right.
And I don't know how many people realize this, but there were people who had to leave the theater They would leave the theater, go out on the sidewalk, and throw up.
My mother was one of them, Michael, because at the time she watched it, my father and my mother went to the movie theater, and I was deployed. I was sitting 7 miles off the coast of Iraq, so they were not happy about that.
Right, and people were. I mean, they couldn't watch the movie because the movie was so horrific. And I occasionally yell at the students in my class. I mean, if you think that going to watch a movie is bad, imagine how terrifying it would be to actually be on the beaches of Normandy. Nobody with any sense ever wants to go back to war. Now, people who are really smart don't want to go to war in the first place, but, you know, most of us have been isolated from that. We really have no grasp of just how bad it can be. And, you know, we live with this naive assumption that this is the United States. It can't happen here. Well, I'm sure the people in Germany didn't think it could happen there. And I wrote a newsletter article recently talking about when the American troops finally defeated the Germans, and we were, releasing the people from the detention centers and death camps in Germany. The German locals, the people who lived, just within miles of the camps, were completely unaware that those camps existed. And so the American military were conscripting the locals. They were, gently forcing them to help carry all the bodies. They had to carry the dead bodies out of the camp and bury them, in graves outside the camp. And even while the German people were in the process of helping, they still expressed disbelief that it could happen. And so for those people in the United States who still believe, naively, that the American government is good, that the American government is just trying to help, that they're working for your best interests, it is time to wake up and smell the coffee. They are not doing anything for your best interest. They are doing everything to destroy the American economy and to put us in a position where we are begging for some powerful leader to come and save us. I mean, that's exactly what happened to Germany. Germany didn't conquer, Adolf Hitler didn't conquer Germany by rolling in with army tanks. He was elected. And elected by huge margins.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, over 90%, right?
In Austria-Hungary, right.
Right.
So the tragedy that happened in Connecticut is being used to generate emotional fear and irrational responses so that the government can come in and use that as an excuse to deprive us of guns. And, people say, well, this is really, really awful. We want to protect our children. Okay, I agree with that. And, we got to get rid of all these guns. But wait a minute. Stop. Put the tape on pause.
That's right. Hold that. Speaking of putting that tape on pause, hold that thought, Michael. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll have much more with Michael Badnarik, and Tim Watts is going to break down this breaking story on how the mainstream media is manipulating numbers to advance the gun control agenda. All when we come back. This is the Freedom Link on the Orion Talk. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget to check out the Freedom Link's new website. That's thefreedomlink.net. And if you go there, you'll notice I put some RSS feeds from all of the top major alternative media sites like drudgereport.com and federaljack.com. and many others. And you can also listen to the show there as well. But I invite you to go to oriontalkradio.com and go to the front page, because there you will find a new article posted by Tim Watts. And Tim, I haven't put it up yet. Oh, you haven't put it up yet? Well, it's going to be up here very shortly. And the nice thing is we have a subject matter expert here who knows all about this, that just like you, went through the gun ban in '94 and everything else, and understands all the fight up to that. So it'll be interesting. I'd love to hear you offer your perspective, and have Michael Badnarik, constitutionpreservation.org, folks, chime in on it, and based on your guys' life experience, kind of go and talk about this, because at that time I was in college and really didn't give two hoots about guns at the time, in 1994. So that would be I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on that. So go ahead, Timmy, break it down.
Well, first off, Mike, I know when he uses life experience, he's calling us two old coots.
Basically, that's the PC way of saying the old bastards. Guys. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree 100% with Mike. They're going after emotion and everything to try to get, this passed. They're trying to jump on something very quick, after they've got everybody, all their fears ratcheted up. And you know what, guys? It's the exact same thing they did to us after 9/11. If nobody notices, any similarities in the model here, this is the exact same thing, the exact same way they approached us about terrorism, about the Patriot Act, about everything after 9/11. And again, it's coming through, one more time. And this time, it's all about guns. And the biggest thing that they tried to, claim this year is that, gun control, gun violence, not gun control, but gun violence is out of hand in this country. And nothing could be farther from the truth. But yet you've heard every media outlet, talk about guns. We've got to have some sort of gun control. Now, I guess the first thing to preface, folks, is why would the media do this? And we've said it before. Please, if you're on the front page of Orion Talk Radio, and if you've never seen it before, scroll to the very bottom and take a look at the piece on media and the media coup and the number of people in our media that are connected with the CFR, which is the Council on Foreign Relations, a very nefarious organization with an agenda. They're linked to the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Group, all of these groups, and it's all about a new world order. So when you see all of these media people aligned with the CFR, that will start to, maybe register in your brain as to why the media is doing what they're doing right now, because there is an agenda at hand. And it started immediately right after the shooting, guys, didn't it? I mean, the bodies were still in the room, and Bloomberg is already calling for a gun ban. But here's the interesting thing. I wanted to explore the statistics and why the media was claiming that gun violence is out of hand. And when you take a look, I mean, a simple 5-minute cursory glance of Google, and you can find this stuff. And again, why didn't the major media? But, a 2011 New York Times article reported data that shows violent crime was at a 40-year low. 40-year low. This was just last year, guys. A 2011 New York Times article, which will be part of this piece that we post here later tonight. And, there's also a 2011 BBC article that says U.S. violent crime has been dropping for well over 20 years. And there are also FBI statistics that show that violent crime has plummeted over 50% in the last 15 years. And then there's FBI data that shows the murder rate in this country has dropped by over 60% in the last 15, 20 years. But the corporate mainstream media is hell-bent on manipulating these statistics and not telling us the real truth. Now, again, these statistics are out there. Everybody was talking about them up until this year, and now all of a sudden it's, we've got gun violence, we've got out-of-control guns in this country, and they're trying to say there's an 18% rise in gun violence in this country. And I found that kind of interesting. Some of the stats that they put out there don't really add up to the fact that there's an 18% rise. I mean, guns in this country, gun violence is very diminutive. The numbers they cited were 19.3 occurrences for every 1,000 people. Well, if you do the math, that's like 1.93%. It's barely 2%. And that rose in the last year to 2.25%. And this is their big, guns are out of control thing here. We've got to have gun control. And I guess, the thing that I found out that was most glaring in this whole thing is that our government keeps two sets of stats when it comes to crime. And this is the really weird part. I mean, there's two organizations that do this within the government. They've got the Bureau of Justice Statistics Department, which is the BJS, and then they've got the Uniform Crime Report, the UCR. Now, the Uniform Crime Report comes from the FBI and is widely regarded as the authority on violent crime in this country. Now, the difference between these two statistics is that the Bureau of Justice Statistics Department, they actually include with their violent crime simple assault. And there's a big key difference there, because simple assault is assault without a weapon. I mean, this can be spousal battery. It can be a barroom fight. I mean, the point to get is that there is no weapon involved in simple assault. Yet the Bureau of Justice Statistics includes this with their violent crime report. Go ahead, Joe.
That's unbelievable. I mean, now, Michael, you know the shenanigans that the government and the media pull all the time. What's your thoughts on what Tim said thus far?
Well, I studied science for most of my education and discovered that if you want to create a particular, conclusion, you draw the graph first, and then you plot the data. You collect all the data, and you only identify those pieces of data that fall on your graph. So it's a predetermined outcome. And most of the science groups in this country are usually paid through grants from, various organizations. Well, if you're, asked to do a research grant by the Dairy Association, let's say, I'm pretty sure that your report is going to scientifically conclude that milk is good for you. Milk does a body good or whatever. And, whoever is paying for the research has basically bought themselves a scientific conclusion. And I think it was Will Rogers that says there are three types of lies. You have lies, damned lies, and statistics. And, clever people can, really manipulate the data to look any way they want. And for an example, let's say that you've got this bar graph from 0 to 100%. And, you've got, you're measuring three different items. One goes to 90%, one goes to 92%, the other goes to 97%. Well, if you look at the entire graph from 0 to 100%, all of those are fairly close. 91, 92, 97, it's all of the ballpark. But if you take that same graph and you only show the top of the graph, let's say from like 87% to 100. Well, if you're only showing the top of the graph, you can make it look like one of those is significantly taller than the other.
Imagine that. Hold that thought, Michael. We'll finish that thought on the other side of the break. Don't go away, folks. Much more to come with Michael Badnarik when we return. Don't forget that you can take Orion Talk Radio with you wherever you go by listening to us on your smartphone with the TuneIn app. Just download the free software, then do a search for Orion Talk Radio. Save us as a preset, and you can listen to Orion anytime, anywhere. Orion Talk Radio on TuneIn, a must-have app for your smartphone. Joe Joseph, Tim Watts, John King, and our very special guests, Michael Badnarik of ConstitutionPreservation.org, 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate and author of the book It's Good to Be King, and his latest book, Secret to Sovereignty, or How to Survive the Second American Revolution. We'll be talking about that book specifically in hour number 2, as there is so much to talk about when it comes to what they're pushing, this agenda they're pushing, which ultimately, I believe, will lead to a second American Revolution. But, Timmy, you were speaking about these statistics, and, Michael was talking to the fact that how easy they are to manipulate. Go ahead and continue with this awesome information.
Well, this is how they did manipulate it. And again, there's two sets of statistics that our government keeps, and that's the Uniform Crime Report, which comes from the FBI. That is generally regarded as the official word on violent crime in America. But you've also got the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the BJS. And what the BJS does, they do some things that don't give you a good idea of the overall picture of crime in America. Number one, they include simple assault, as I said, with aggravated assault. And a simple assault has nothing to do with a weapon. So, this has no place in this gun debate right now if they're talking about simple assault because, again, a weapon wasn't used. But the other thing that the BJS does that I found, pretty outlandish for someone that's trying to keep statistics is they combined hard data and soft data. Now, hard data is stuff that you can get from, research data that you can actually, hard, finite data. And soft data is stuff that you would get like from a call-out survey or a focus group. And that's exactly what they're doing. The BJS now does call-out surveys. They've got this thing called the National Crime Survey, which changed, I think, in the last few years to the National Crime Victimization Survey. Well, what they do is they call out around America, and they make anywhere from 44,000 to 77,000 calls, and they try to find out, about crime in the home. And that's just wrong to take, soft data like that and to include it with hard data, because now you're beholden to people's memory, to their perceptions and stuff like that, and that's not as good as hard data. But this is where they got their 18% rise in crime. It comes from the BJS. And what they did was they added 3.9 million simple assaults to their violent crimes list. And that is the only way they were able to get these numbers to go up. Because when you look at the UCR data, which came out, probably 2 weeks after the BJS data, the UCR, which is from the FBI, had this to say. Compared with 2010, the new figures show violent crime is down 3.8% overall. 3.8% overall, it's down. It's not up by 18%. The FBI says it's down by 3.8%. Now, pay attention. Property crimes are also down 0.5%. And among violent incidents reported to police, murders were down by 0.7%. Robberies dropped 4%. Aggravated assaults declined almost 4% as well, 3.9%. And rapes were down 2.5%. Essentially, folks, violent crime is still down in this country. And as I prefaced early, with my remarks, it's been down for a long time, and the media knows it. Again, a New York Times article that wrote that violent crime was at a 40-year low. They just wrote that last year. The BBC also wrote an article in 2011 that said violent crime has been dropping for well over 20 years. And FBI statistics show that violent crime has plummeted 50% in the last 15 years. But for some reason, all of a sudden now the media says, crime has risen 18% because they're using these false BJS statistics that don't actually reflect true crime in America. Now, what happened here is you saw CNN and the Piers Morgan fiasco, and also the Soledad O'Brien, the travesty. I don't know what to call that. It wasn't an interview. That was attack journalism. But they had on Professor John Lott, the guy who literally wrote the book on gun violence in America. And rather than bring him on as an expert witness, they brought him on as somebody that they could denigrate or try to dismiss. Probably because he has the actual stats, and I don't think I think they actually it was all about character assassination. Piers Morgan actually calls the guy a liar right on air. I hope he gets sued for that. And Soledad O'Brien says, "Oh, your position completely boggles me." And he said, "I'm not here to support the Second Amendment. I'm just here to tell you about gun crime. I know about gun crime in this country," but they wouldn't listen to him. And this is the interesting thing on CNN's own website. They got a guy there, the CNN justice producer, Terry Frieden. He wrote 2 articles. One came out right after the BJS statistics, and the other one came out after the UCR statistics. And they were probably about 12 days apart. So they reported both sides of the story. They know what the BJS statistics are, and they know what the UCR statistics are. Yet somehow they found it, convenient to forget all of that and go after, Professor John Lott, with these false BJS statistics. And again, this just proves a point that the media is totally in on this. They're pushing an agenda because CNN on their own website, and the article that we will publish after the show tonight will show you that they have the data, yet they totally ignored it and just wanted to excoriate, Professor Lott on the air so that maybe, people might not pay attention to this crackpot, but he's not a crackpot, folks. This guy knows the truth. And again, he wrote the book on violent crime. Matter of fact, his book is called More Guns, Less Crime. So if you want to look it up, More Guns, Less Crime, and you'll get all the statistics that you need, on gun violence in America. But guys, it's mind-boggling that these statistics are out there, and yet the media continues to trumpet the fact that there's a false 18% rise in gun violence when there's absolutely not.
So what are you saying? Are you saying there's a media bias, Tim?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Now, Michael's been subject to media bias as well. I remember there was a couple times, and at least one time I know in 2004 where somebody was arrested for trying to get into a media event. Who could that have been?
Gosh, and I apologize. I can't even remember my buddy's name off the top of my head right now. But the Green Party candidate and I were arrested in St. Louis trying to attend a presidential debate. And we crossed the police line. We were immediately arrested and handcuffed and put into a van. And a couple minutes later, a police officer opens up the door of the van and he says, "Which one of you guys is a presidential candidate?" And I said, "Well, we're both presidential candidates. We're at a presidential debate." And I said, "You have us in handcuffs." I said, "Can you explain that to me?" And he says, "Well, let me get back to you on that." And the other, my buddy, is David Cobb, who was running for president of the Green Party at the time.
Unbelievable. And that just goes to show you, I mean, just how coerced and corrupted the not only the mainstream media is, but, also our political system. And the thing to glean from what, Tim's research has shown is that they will stop at nothing to advance this agenda. And don't think it's for your own safety. This is not for your safety. This is for their safety. You see, the Second Amendment was put in place, of course, to protect us against a tyrannical government. And, Michael, I mean, we're at a point now in our history where, and we'll talk about this in hour number 2, folks, where your book is going to really come into play. How to survive that second American Revolution, because I don't think there's any way to avoid this. In prior shows, we've kind of detailed a little bit about what is all converging at one point in time, with this Second Amendment gun grab legislation being introduced, with insurance care, insurance care being introduced, and these draconian tax increases along with cuts to social welfare programs. And it's like you point out in your book, with Greece, as soon as the social programs, the money runs out, people riot. In France, same thing with Sarkozy. Sarkozy does cuts, and they bring in the socialists. So this is not anything new. The world has seen this, and when we come back, we'll wrap up our hour one conversation, and then we'll get into the book. So don't go away, folks. More. Welcome back, folks. Orion Talk Radio is growing fast, and it's all thanks to you. With over 2 million people listening, folks are now making Orion Talk Radio their choice for the truth. They know the corporate mainstream media machine has failed us miserably, so thank you to each and every one of you for listening to Orion Talk Radio news and views beyond the mainstream media. Joe Joseph, Tim Watson, John King here with our very special guest, Michael Badnarik of his website's constitutionpreservation.org, and we'll be talking about his book coming up in hour number 2. His latest book is, of course, the fantastic work of Secret to Sovereignty, and that is how to prepare for the Second American Revolution, or how to survive the Second American Revolution. Now, Michael, we've been talking so much about how the talking heads have been pushing this agenda. And, you know, I said before the break that it's to protect them. It's not to protect us. The Second Amendment was put in place to protect us from an oppressive government, was it not?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, I have never heard anybody openly advocate that people do not have a right to life. I think the right to life is pretty much a solid issue. We don't have to worry about debates on that. But in order to stay alive, you have to deal with people who may want to kill you. And, you know, you can do all sorts of things to talk to them. You can beg with them. You could, you know, but my favorite is to just put them out of my misery. You know, if anybody is trying to hurt me, I take umbrage with that. And I will use whatever level of force is necessary to put a stop to it. Now, the shooting in Connecticut, everybody is horrified, especially because the victims are all, you know, 9, 10-year-old. I mean, they're really, really innocent victims. Now, when they made the phone call, when they heard the shooting and this person made the first phone call, they called the police. And they wanted the SWAT team to arrive. And the SWAT team did arrive. The SWAT team was carrying AR-15s. They had multi-round magazines. And, you know, they've got all these, you know, nasty people with guns to come and protect the children. Well, after the children are dead, it's a little bit late to protect the children. I mean, you know, we used to say that like closing the barn door after the horses run away.
Right.
So when the NRA recommended that, you know, teachers and principals actually have guns and get trained with guns, the mainstream media, the politicians were practically laughing them away from the podium. It's like, oh, my God, you know, I can't believe that you're suggesting that we actually allow guns in the schools. Well, wait a minute. You think that it's better to wait until the children are dead and then call the people with guns? That's a better solution than having the guns in the school with somebody who knows how to use them, somebody that could, terminate the problem right away? That's like, you know, putting all of the fire extinguishers down at the fire station. And if the fire breaks out, well, then the fire department could come down and loan you a fire extinguisher. You know, God forbid that you should actually have the fire extinguisher handy so that you could use it when you need it.
Yeah. There's a reason. There's a reason why they call them first responders. It's because they respond after the incident. They're the first ones on the scene after it happens.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so I mean, there's a reason why they use that terminology, you know?
They get there just in time to draw the chalk outline, around the bodies laying on the floor.
That's right. John King, your thoughts?
Yes, we have always been a gun culture in this country from the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence to even today. This phenomena of school shootings and mass shootings with military-style rifles and semi-automatics is only a recent phenomenon. Now, I think one of the first things we need to do, guys, is take a look at what has changed between 2012 and 1912 and correct the course and get us back in line, because something's obviously wrong. Is it that we're not teaching morals in school? What's going on and what's different between then and now? Because it's having a direct effect on our society, and it's not a positive one.
Well, John, society, Michael, this is one thing I teach in my Constitution class. We were founded on the principle of equal justice under the law. As a matter of fact, I think that's written right on the Supreme Court building, equal justice under the law. But would you not agree now that we have migrated to a system where it is social justice under the law?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no real justice in our court systems anymore. And it's ludicrous to pretend. And I just got an email, I think it was this morning, I believe, if I understood the email correctly, that there is a judge who has openly declared that the chances of getting true justice in the court system these days is like slim and none.
Are you saying there's an honest judge out there? What?
That was my impression, but it's the holidays. My brother was in, and I didn't have time today to fully absorb the email.
Yeah, the eggnog was flowing. I know. When you said that, I'm like, wow, a judge with a conscience. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
something
it sounds like
right.
a hoax, and I almost hesitate to mention it on the air because I haven't researched it. It probably turned out that it was one of these articles from The Onion.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, one of the things that Dianne Feinstein is bringing up to Timmy's, the reason why they're pushing this so hard is Dianne Feinstein is introducing legislation in the 2013 session that bans the sale, transport, importation, and manufacturing of 120 specifically named firearms, certain other semi-automatic rifles, handguns, shotguns that can accept a detachable magazine and have one or more military characteristics, and semi-automatic rifles and handguns with fixed magazines that can accept more than 10 rounds. It strengthens I love how they say it strengthens the 1994 assault weapons ban and various state bans by moving from a 2-characteristic test to a 1-characteristic test, eliminating the easy-to-remove bayonet mounts and flash suppressors from the characteristics test, and banning firearms with thumb hole stocks and bullet buttons to address attempts to work around prior bans. It also bans large-capacity ammunition feeding devices capable of accepting more than 10 rounds, protects legitimate hunters and the rights of existing gun owners by grandfathering weapons legally possessed on the date of enactment, exempting over 900 specifically named weapons used for hunting or sporting purposes, and exempting antique, manually operated, and permanently disabled weapons. Oh, by the way, if you have a grandfathered weapon, you will be required to register it and also get fingerprints. Get you some. What do you think about that, Michael?
Well, the Constitution is a document which it establishes limitations, and Congress has been expert at finding ways to work around it. So they don't want us working around their laws the way they have clearly worked around ours.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I find it very interesting that all of this happens right before January 1, 2013. And, the fiscal cliff, I love that terminology because it's meant to program people. It's meant to, make people think, well, if they don't do something, then, we go over this cliff. When in reality, it doesn't matter what they do. Isn't that right, Michael? Because either way, we're going down.
Yes, the economy is going to collapse. There's no way around that. Right. I've been saying that for a long time, but I went to listen to a lecture presented by Peter Schiff. And I tell people that the economy is going to crash and people are going to die. Peter Schiff makes my outlook look cheerfully optimistic. He gives data and reasons. And, everybody who went to listen to Mr. Schiff, we're already with the program. We already know that, things ain't right. And several times during his presentation, I heard people gasping, like, oh, my gosh, they didn't realize it was going to be that bad.
Yeah, and the good people of Connecticut went and they picked Linda McMahon over Peter Schiff. You say what you will, but that speaks volumes about how plugged in people are in that state. And also, too, remember, folks, Connecticut already had draconian gun laws, and it still happened in Connecticut. These mass shootings will happen regardless of if you have draconian gun laws or not, because criminals don't care about laws. So what? Well, if for that matter, congressmen don't either. Ugh. A sad state of affairs. Folks, hour number 1 is done. Hour number 2 is on the way. When we come back, we'll talk with Michael about his brand new book, Secrets to Sovereignty, and also how to survive the Second American Revolution. All this when the Freedom Link returns. It's hour number 2, the Freedom Link, right here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph, along with my sidekicks, Tim Watts and John King, and our special guest, Michael Badnarik of ConstitutionPreservation.org. And, boy, I'll tell you what, fantastic first hour going over the Second Amendment. Timmy put out some very bombshell evidence to support what other way can you put it? The fraud that's being perpetrated on the American people through the skewed statistics that they're using to support their gun control agenda. Before we get to Michael again, it's time to call the King's Court into session. So, John King, take it away.
Step right up and bring in your guns for $50. The LAPD gun buyback program netted pistols, shotguns, semi-automatic rifles, and yes, even military-style rifles. People lined up by the scores to surrender their guns, and when asked what their motivations were, they said Newtown. As a libertarian, I was horrified to see the video of the people proudly giving up their guns, stating Newtown was their motivation. Then I began to realize it was the natural order of things. Not Darwinian survival of the fittest or evolutionary theory, mind you, but my own personal theory of survival of the smartest. Now, you can have all the right brawn, but without intelligence, you're stuck. John, what Mongo? Mongo drink bad milk in refrigerator. Mongo, I just bought milk yesterday. It's not bad. Mongo say milk tastes bad on cereal. Show me the milk, Mongo. Mongo, that's milk of magnesia. See, people? See what I mean? You can be strong as an ox, but if you're as dumb as dirt, you're not going to make it either. I quickly realized it was natural selection at its finest. I didn't feel bad. I even felt entertained. I then laughed and shouted, "Ha ha, suckers!" I was looking at The Walking Dead. Phase 1 has commenced. They are taking their guns off the streets from irresponsible gun owners. One man said he didn't want guns in his house because he had 6 grandchildren living with him. I guess he never heard of a lock and key or a gun safe or at the very least a trigger guard. A Florida store clerk shot and killed a man who tried to rob her family-owned convenience store. On his way out, the robber tried to kidnap the clerk's 1-year-old daughter that was That's when the mother sprang into action, drawing a gun and firing at the robber. The man was shot and tackled by another employee. The robber died from his injuries. Think she's ready to turn in her gun? A California man who was at home with his mother was facing a masked home invader in the early evening. The homeowner fired one shot from his .22 caliber handgun, striking the suspect in the chest. The suspect died from his wounds. Do you think they want to give up their gun? A woman in a nail salon in Wyoming may have stopped an attempted armed robber before it ever began just by carrying the gun herself. A man entered a small nail salon and asked a woman inside if she wanted to buy some diamonds. After the woman declined, the man started walking towards the front desk and drew a small pistol. One of the female patrons drew her own gun from her purse, and upon seeing the armed citizen, the gunman fled the scene. Maybe she would be willing to give up her gun. You see, for every irresponsible, unthinking douchebag out there, there are thousands of responsible ones. Yes, guns kill in the hands of mental whack jobs, but so does fire in the hands of an arsonist. Mongo say, ban fire. Court adjourned.
Thank you, John King. Very, very, very good. Thank you, Mongo. And I want to play this clip real quick because this really it just kills me. I don't know what else to say about it. But Rick Warren was the guest of Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan says, well, I think it's time to amend the Bible and the Constitution because it's out of date. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Well, the Bible and the Constitution were well-intentioned, but they are basically inherently flawed. Hence the need to amend it. My point of view about gay rights, for example, it's time for an amendment to the Bible.
No.
You should compile a new Bible.
Not a chance. What I believe is flawed is human opinion because it constantly changes. And in fact, we do it every 8 years. In America, we have a change in opinion. What was hot is now not, and I willingly admit that I base my worldview on the Bible, which I believe is true. And truth, my definition of truth is, if it's new, it's not true. If it was true 1,000 years ago, it'll be true 1,000 years from today. Opinion changes, but truth doesn't.
We're going to agree to disagree on that. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about children.
You know what I like, though? Piers, we need more of this kind of talk.
I agree.
We need...
The debate should always be respectful. But it's the moment... And by the way, it applies to politics, too.
Yeah.
The moment it becomes disrespectful and discourteous and then rude and then poisonous, you never achieve anything.
What the heck are we going to achieve with Piers Morgan? I'd like to see him go back to England. But now, of course, the English citizens have put forth their own petition saying keep him.
Have they really?
Yes, they have. So that's not good. Michael, your thoughts on the great Piers Morgan and what he had to say?
Well, I agreed with the idea that truth is, he expressed it, if it was true 1,000 years ago, it's true today. And, that's impossible to argue with. And my point is that we had a right to life, liberty, and private property 230, 40 years ago when we, started the country, and we still have a right to life, liberty, and property. And we have an inherent right to defend our lives, our liberty, and our property. And we can do so using whatever tools are available and we think we need. And the most efficient way to defend your rights, in my humble opinion, is carrying a gun. And, the one I have is not, just a gun. I mean, it'd be impossible to miss. When I'm wearing it in my shoulder holster, nobody gives me a hard time. Nobody tries to hurt me. Nobody tries to take my stuff. And that's all I wanted. That's all I want. I just want people to leave me alone.
Yeah.
Don't try to injure me. And, if it requires, me carrying my, 45 semi-auto under my arm, I'm happy to do that.
And I can't say I blame you because, with that comes respect. That's one of the things that I think is sorely lacking today, one being personal responsibility. That the Constitution was based on that premise that each person is responsible for themselves, and also personal respect, respecting other people's civil liberties and space and property. And those two things are sorely lacking, aren't they, Michael?
They are. I've traveled to England. I was working for a computer company, and I was one of their trainers. But one of the things that I did while I was there was to tour some of the royal buildings, the castles. And it was a sudden realization, because the decoration, they have these huge halls, and the decorations on the walls were rifles overlaid in a herringbone pattern, and pistols, usually in a circular rose pattern. I mean, the entire room was decorated in guns.
That's lovely. That's art.
And what made it so stunning is that, the people were not allowed to have guns. And so it was clear that the message being translated in all of this is that we are the king, we are the royal family. We can have guns, and you can't.
That's right. Isn't that interesting? Again, to protect them, they want to disarm us. Folks, we'll be right back. Talk about Michael's new book when the Freedom Link returns.
Doctor, my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without...
Folks, I'd like to invite you to go to OrionTalkRadio.com and check out I want you to check out two different things. First thing is the bombshell new article written by Tim Watts detailing the fraud perpetrated on the American people by the mainstream media, manipulating statistics to push the gun control agenda. He gives you hard evidence to support it, and it's a must-read, so go to OrionTalkRadio.com, the front page, and also watch the documentary Innocence Betrayed, which is also on the front page of the Orion Talk Radio website. And you can go there and watch it, but again, make sure that you prepare yourself for it before you sit down and watch it. Our guest tonight is Michael Badnarik, ConstitutionPreservation.org, 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate, and author of the new book, Secret to Sovereignty, How to Survive the Second American Revolution. So, Michael, what inspired you to write this new book?
Ever since I started teaching my Constitution class, I have had people asking me, how do I? Questions. How do I drive without a driver's license? How do I carry a gun without a concealed carry permit? As if I'm walking around with a huge stack of government forms that they can fill out. I mean, the government is never going to give you permission to ignore the government. And so I've been getting these questions all the time, but I had a flurry of them. It was like, the moon was in the right phase, and people were just calling and nagging me with these questions. And so I decided to put the answers in a book. That way I don't have to answer the phone and, spend my time answering the same questions over and over again. And so the book turned out to be fairly easy to write. It only took me about 3 weeks to finish it once I got started. And I don't accept monopoly money. I don't accept Confederate money from your great-great-grandpappy's days with the Confederacy. And I don't accept Federal Reserve notes.
Oh.
For the same reason. All of those pieces of paper are worthless. They mean absolutely nothing. And so my book is technically not for sale, but it is available for barter. And if anybody wants a copy, they need to send me something tangible. I recommend an ounce of silver. You send me an ounce of silver, which has got, tangible value, and I will send you a copy of my book, which I hope you believe is worth, is of tangible value. And, it's a little bit like being on the Titanic and the propeller's up in the air, and you're trying to tell people to get into the lifeboat. Well, if they want to go dance at the ballroom, there's really not a lot that, we can do for them. And so my book is for the people who are aware that there is a problem, and they want to know, really, what can I do to help save myself and save my family? And at the beginning of the book, I point out, I do have the answers. It's quite possible that you're not going to like my answers. But, I'm very proud of the book. I'm very proud of Good to be King, but I'm a little bit more excited about Secret to Sovereignty because I think that it will trigger the Second American Revolution, which is now inevitable.
Now, when did the book get released, Michael?
Just after Thanksgiving.
And have you seen what gauge the interest? How's the interest been since it's been put up for barter?
Well, I purchase 100 copies at a time, and anytime you purchase 100 more, they give you 25 free copies. Uh-huh. So I've already been through my first, set of 125 copies, and I've got my second shipment here. So
very good.
I was confident that the books would sell briskly here at the beginning. Because I do have a following. People were sending me silver before the book was even in print. But the real test is, to measure how well it's going to be selling at the end of 2013. So, it's quite possible that, everything goes really well and then interest peters out because, there's only a small number of us that are concerned. If the interest continues to increase, then I will know that I've kind of hit a nerve and people are taking the information to heart.
If people want to order the book, Michael, where do they go?
They go to my website, constitutionpreservation.org. There's all the information you ever want. It has a several-page teaser. You could read some of what's in the book. It has a barter link, and you can go basically send 1 ounce of pure silver, 999 fine, to my address here in Indiana, and as soon as I get your silver, I will slip a book in the mail and send it back to you.
Fantastic. Is there? And now let me ask you this: as far as the book's concerned, and you said that you hope that, or at least you think that the book, if in enough people's hands, will help spur the Second American Revolution. Can you give us one thing in that book that was an important point that you wanted to get across to people? Like, if you were to choose the point that would be most important to you, what would it be?
That sovereignty is a gift that you give yourself. It is an attitude. If I say, Joe, you are my slave, and you better get your butt over here and pick my cotton, wash the floors, whatever it is that I want you to do. You have two choices. You can tell me to take a flying leap off a short pier because there's no way in hell you're going to do that. Or you can cringe in fear and go, please, Michael, don't hurt me. I'm just trying to stay out of trouble. So, it's all up to you. I write about tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe is a logic lesson. The only way I can win the game of tic-tac-toe is for you to make a simple but stupid mistake that allows me to win. That's why we only play tic-tac-toe with children, because they haven't learned that logic. But, once you get older, once you learn that logic, then, there's no point in playing the game anymore. Well, dominance and submissiveness are the same thing. banks work the same way. You cannot be subordinate to somebody else if you're not willing to be. If two people approach each other and they are both assertive, neither one of them is willing to, let the other take advantage of them, then, well, you're on equal terms. You want a level playing field. Okay? Well, you want a level playing field with the government? Then adopt the realization that you are sovereign, that the government works for you, not the other way around.
Right.
And so each person has the ability to live as a free person. But it's going to require you to be brave. It's going to require you to be intelligent. It's going to require you to, have integrity. I mean, being free has a lot of responsibilities, and most people are not going to want to adhere to those responsibilities.
No, that's right. The culture of convenience has certainly done a number to our idea of personal responsibility. Folks, when we come back, we'll go over some different constitutional issues facing America today. So don't go away. Much more with Michael Badnarik when the Freedom Link returns right here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget, the Freedom Link has a new website. It's thefreedomlink.net, thefreedomlink.net. Go there and you can check out the RSS feeds from all of the good alternative media sites, as well as you can listen to the show and participate in a live chat. All right there at thefreedomlink.net. My special guest tonight is Michael Badnarik, constitutionpreservation.org. And we're talking about his new book, Secret to Sovereignty. And, Michael, one thing that I teach my Constitution class, and by the way, I wouldn't be a tenth of where I am now if it wasn't for you and what you do. And I want you to understand that, because my students actually, even though you don't know them, they know you very well. So that being said, one thing that I teach them is that freedom is not free. Freedom takes an extremely, you have to be extremely vigilant. You have to defend it and be prepared to defend it with your life if necessary. And one thing is, never be afraid. And one thing that I tell them all the time is that no matter what happens, you have to give your rights away. They can't take them away because they don't come from them and they don't come from the Constitution. They come from the Creator. And so you have to make the conscious choice to give them away. I said, they can beat you senseless. They can throw you in prison, and you still haven't given them away. So it's that principle that I'm trying to instill that I see is sorely lacking in society today. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree completely. And that's essentially the essence of my new book.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, I'm still going to get one nonetheless, but that's awesome. And I'll tell you what, like I said, I've got everybody from, like 12 to 15 years old and it's at my homeschool co-op that I teach constitutional law. And like I said, it was watching some of your videos and all that kind of stuff that actually spurred me into reading about the Constitution and learning it. And so your efforts are, believe me, you reach a lot of people. Sometimes I know I get discouraged at some points in time because, you're like, oh, are we making any headway? I can tell you for a certainty that we're making headway, not only in the fact that how the young people are responding, but also, like, for example, Brownells, Michael. Brownells sells 3.5 years worth of magazines in 72 hours after this shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. How amazing is that? And what does that say about the American populace and how many guns are actually out there?
Well, like I said earlier, there are more guns in the United States than people. And I've seen, satirical posters announcing that Barack Obama is the NRA gun salesman of the year, alleging that once he was elected, people went out in droves. And most of those people buying guns were first-time gun owners. They had never had a gun before. And so, we can speculate, but, why did all these people suddenly feel it was necessary to have a gun? I think it's because they recognize just how bad things are going to be. They know that, if martial law is declared, you're not going to be able to call 911. You can call, but they're not going to have anybody there to send in your direction. We're all going to be responsible for our own safety when that time comes.
That's right. And I've seen videos on YouTube of gun stores, people actually taking footage and the lines out the door for the background check and around the corner and the shelves are bare. I really truly think, Michael, that, Thomas Jefferson said it best when he says, inform the people generally and tyranny and oppression will vanish like the dark at the dawn of the day. I don't think the American people are stupid. I really don't. I think they're just sadly misinformed. Not only through the irresponsibility of our mainstream media, as Tim pointed out tonight in that fantastic article that's now on the front page of OrionTalkRadio.com, but, also through our leadership, Congress, usurping the Constitution, not following the rule of law. How the rule of law doesn't apply to everybody anymore. But I don't think the American people are stupid. Like I said, I just don't think they're really plugged in and or they're misinformed. They're led astray. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, you have to know there's a problem. I tell my students that, it's easy to point your finger at Washington, D.C. The question is, where did they get their power from, which is the Constitution, and we, the people, wrote, and ordained the Constitution. So we give the government power, not the other way around. And, Thomas Jefferson suggested that, people need a good revolution, about every 20 years, just to, clean out all the dead wood in the government.
Yeah, and also to keep it fresh in their mind about how much of a price, it is to actually have to go through that. There's no frame of reference anymore. Isn't that right, Tim? There's no frame of reference anymore when it comes to what the founding fathers sacrificed and what the people in that period sacrificed to gain our freedom, No,
I don't think people have any idea at all, what these people did for us. They actually gave up, everything that they were doing in their life, to go and bring this, republic to us. And yet people take it so much for granted right now. And, the fact that people parse back and forth on the Second Amendment, that's really an outrage, that people can't understand what the mentality was of the time, and that we had just escaped, the monarchy, and that guns were, put into our Constitution so, that we could protect ourselves from them. They gave us this right, and people, they parse that back and forth, and they just don't understand it. And I know Michael gets it very well, but gosh, it's very frustrating when you hear these bobbleheads on TV say, oh, that wasn't what the Second Amendment was for. Like, really, what the hell do you think it was for?
No, you're right. It's, one of the interesting things, Andrew Jackson said, 1 million armed freemen possessed of the means of war can never be conquered. These guys know that, don't they, Michael? And that's why they want to take the guns away.
That is why they want to take the guns away. They don't want us to have the ability to resist them when they finally come to take our property.
You know, you're absolutely right. Even Patrick Henry said, guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whether you give up that force or whenever you give up that force, you're ruined. And I think you're right. I don't think there's a lot of Americans, Michael, that would give up that force, you know, myself included, and I'm sure you as well. And I don't think it's any coincidence that in the last year, the U.S. government has purchased over 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition for domestic use only, including 750 million rounds of hollow point munitions for target practice. So what do you think about that, Michael? Do you think that's in preparation for a possible revolt?
Oh, yeah. We are the targets. They just left that information out of the report.
Ah, yes. I see. And you're probably right. You're probably right. I mean, you think about that's an obscene amount of ammunition, number one, and number two, hollow points outlawed by the Geneva Convention. So they're not going to use it overseas in war. They have to use it here.
Well, it's only an obscene amount of ammunition if I'm not allowed to access it.
That's right. I agree. Anytime that happens, that it is obscene. But it's also obscene, too, that you would have a domestic agency use that. And understand this, too, folks. You know, Michael, this book is really good in the fact that people need to understand what sovereignty means. And one thing that we do as American people who pay taxes is we're funding our own enslavement. Just think about that and let that sink in through the break. Last segment of the broadcast coming up. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Folks, immediately following the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network, Down the Rabbit Hole is having a special broadcast of Innocence Betrayed. He'll be playing that as well as offering up some commentary. So stay tuned. Immediately following the Freedom Link at 11 p.m. Eastern is Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye. And before we go on, I'd like to thank you, Michael, for coming on the broadcast tonight and talking to us about, the Second Amendment, how you feel, and where we stand today as a country. It's very refreshing to have you on and to really validate what we say too, because we're in this together. Whether or not people see eye to eye right now, it's a shame that we fall prey to the many divide and conquer tactics that are there, whether it be gun control or the pro-Second Amendment, whether you're libertarian or you're a lefty or you're a righty, you're rich, you're poor, you're white, you're black. It doesn't matter. There's a whole slew of things. And I think that there's too much focus on all these distractions and not enough on the big picture. And the big picture is they want to enslave us. They want us to be controlled. And we are going to have a revolution on our hands, whether we like it or not. Because we are going to face difficulty, whether through austerity or through a devaluation in currency or through draconian tax increases or through the evisceration of the Second Amendment. It doesn't matter. Something is going to happen. There's too many things in play. So, Michael, what can people do, in your opinion, or what's some of the best ways that you can offer up for people to get active and to get out there? What are some tips?
I list all of those suggestions in, I think it's chapter 10 of my book. And, again, it's taking personal responsibility. Most people will be able to figure this stuff out on their own if they put their mind to it. But, I'm hoping that people will buy my book to to be inspired and motivated to become more active.
Absolutely. And just remember, folks, a disarmed people is not a free people. And history shows that all too many times over. Isn't that right, Timmy?
Oh, absolutely. They're not taking my gun. I live by the Chuck Heston rule, from my cold, dead hands.
No, that's right. Now, Timmy,
it doesn't come to that.
Well, go ahead and recap those stats one more time, just to let it sink in for the listeners.
Yeah, again, folks, just keep in mind is the media foments this false narrative, that guns are the issue here in America. Gun crime is up. They're citing bad statistics. There is no 18% rise in crime. That is not correct. The FBI's own statistics prove that crime is down in America. Matter of fact, violent crime is down 3.8% overall. That's for 20-some years in a row. Murders are down. Robberies are down. Aggravated assaults are down. Rapes are down. All violent crime is down in America. And you know what's funny, guys? In some of the articles that I went through when I was looking at this research, officials can't figure out why crime is down. And I think Michael hit the money right on the head. Or hit the, whatever. Hit the head right on, the nail right on the head. But, it's the fact that gun sales have gone up. People are more protected, Hey, what's happened after every one of these shootings, guys?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's going to continue to do so, I'm sure, at a rapid pace, Michael, until they try to push some sort of legislation. Let me ask you this. Considering the fact that, our political system is a Travis mockery, to say the least. Say Feinstein, and she's going to try to introduce this gun ban or assault weapons ban or whatever you want to call it. Do you have any confidence that the House would strike it down or vote it down?
No, and I really don't care. They can pass any law that they want. Then they have to try to enforce it. I was giving a presentation to a group of college students, and one girl said, "Mr. Badnarik, don't you think guns are dangerous?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "If I thought guns are dangerous, I wouldn't have a closet full of them." And then she got really smug and asked, "Couldn't we vote to take your guns away?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. You can have a unanimous vote that Michael is dangerous and evil, and you can vote to take my guns away." I said, "But then you're going to have another vote to see which one of you is going to come and take them." And that's not a vote that I recommend that you win.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of Americans feel that way. I know that everybody on this broadcast feels the way that you do as well. And, it's like I said, folks, you can look back through time and look at all of the societies that have been disarmed and then what happened after that. History shows that every time a society is disarmed, you have genocide soon after. I mean, go ahead, Timmy.
No, I was just going to say, let's not forget who's pushing this agenda. Not only the media, who, as we mentioned before, are in bed with the Council on Foreign Relations, but look at who's crafting this bill. It's none other than Dianne Feinstein. And what is Dianne Feinstein a member of? The Council on Foreign Relations.
Yeah, she's not a libertarian, that's for sure, is she, Michael?
Not by my standard.
No, that's true. Hey, speaking of libertarian, any potential 2016 presidential runs?
No.
Oh, dadgummit.
Why? Why would I run for president?
Well, you're right.
The entire election process is corrupt.
Yeah, it is.
It would be like gerbils running in a wheel. We're expending all this energy and we're not going to get anywhere. So I'm not in the habit of wasting my energy and wasting other people's time and money.
Well, one thing that you do that doesn't waste people's time and money, and certainly not their energy, is teaching the Constitution. if people want to hire you to conduct one of your seminars, how do they go about doing that?
Give me a call. My number is 512-461-0995. And, I mean, I'm happy to teach my class as soon as I get enough people to make it worth my while. But I'm not going to come out and teach my class for free. I mean, I'm trying desperately to put food on the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. So, folks, visit constitutionpreservation.org or give Michael a phone call and, gauge some interest. Let's get Michael out there. One of the things that we can do and our most effective tool in this battle is the war on information, to educate the people. It's like I said before, the American people aren't stupid. The American people are misinformed. And Tim, you did a fantastic job of showing just how it is that the American people can be misinformed, through the through the absolute, almost treasonous way that the mainstream media manipulates information.
Oh, I think that's a good way to sum it up, Joe. It's treason, and they are flat out lying. It's not like they're parsing semantics here or something like that. They're flat out lying. Data is out there that exists that they know about. Again, CNN actually published part of the UCR statistics, and yet they went on air and just excoriated Professor John Lott over gun control. So they know better. They're lying to you, folks.
Any possibility that you would debate Piers Morgan?
Oh, God, I'd love to debate Piers Morgan.
What about you, Michael?
Michael, sorry.
No, it's okay. You could debate him too, but Michael, we got to get you on the air. I would love to hear you spar with Piers.
Oh, be happy to. I've never lost a political debate in my life.
I know you haven't, and I'll tell you what: the work that you do is fantastic. The courage that you show is inspirational, to say the least. And I'm very glad to be able to have you on this broadcast tonight, and and have you back from time to time to talk about these issues, because you really hit the nail on the head, and all my listeners, they appreciate it as well. So before we go tonight, can you just plug your site and your book one more time for the listeners?
The website is constitutionpreservation.org. Do not type Constitution now. It's just constitutionpreservation.org. My phone number is 512-461-0995. Call me. Let's make it happen.
Hey, who's that new secretary you got on the line there?
Yeah, right.
Hey, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Let me add real quick. Angie just said the link on the front of the website is broken for the story. That will be fixed in 2 seconds. I've been trying to repair it. I've known about it. I've been trying to post while we've been talking here. For some reason, I can't get out on my internet now to post that story. But it will be posted within 5 minutes when we get off the air, folks.
Oh, very, very good. So, folks, don't forget to check out that article. And don't forget to go to constitutionpreservation.org. Order Michael's new book, Secret to Sovereignty. Michael, thank you for coming on the broadcast tonight. I hope to have you back real soon.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to join.
Hey, no sweat. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.